Video. This is Lost in the Pond, 6 Ways British and American Hotels Are Very Different. Since I've never been to England, I do not know what a British hotel would look like, or I got an idea what it would look like, but I don't know how they are different. Now, I just got back from an overnight trip with my girlfriend, and we stayed in a hotel at the Hampton Inn. And let me take us, so it's fresh in my mind, let's see what the differences are.
This is the word we use for what Americans might call a bellboy or a bellhop. Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to hotels, or as they're known in Britain, hotels. I mean, it's the same. And of course, as a certified YouTube sensation, I've done my fair bit of world travel, right? Just off the top of my head, I've been to Britain, America, and
I am not a YouTube sensation. I have been to Germany, I've been to Bermuda, I've been to the United States, all over the United States, mind you, and I've been to Canada and Mexico as well.
I think from that, I've stayed in quite a few hotels, so I know what I'm talking about. But when it comes to the two countries, whether you're just looking for a quick getaway or something discreet, it is worth learning that hotels in Britain aren't necessarily the same as their American counterparts. And so without further ado, let's metaphorically ding one of those bells at reception as I uncover ways that British and American hotels are very different. When I was out there for the first time on the American open road, living the hotel lifestyle on my honeymoon, the first confusing thing that I noticed is that elevators in American hotels, and as it turns out, everywhere else, insist upon taking you to different floors to what they would in Britain. Lawrence, what do you mean by that? Well,
I was about to ask that question myself.
Here's how elevators/lifts, we'll get onto terminology later, work in Britain. The floor where I enter the hotel and speak to reception and ask them if they
is either the ground floor or the first floor.
Have any free dental floss is known in Britain as the ground floor.
Now, I've called it the ground floor before, but we also call it the lobby.
When you enter the elevator, you press G to stay on the ground floor. Nobody would ever do that. Or number 1 to go up to the floor above. Or number 2 above that. 3 above that, and you get my drift. But in America, I don't know why my hand is still up there. In America, it's a little bit different. Because that same floor where I enter the hotel and talk to reception and ask them for some free dental floss, and they actually know what dental floss is the first floor. And this
sometimes it's the lobby. It's not always the first floor.
Is usually denoted in the elevator by the number 1.
Yeah, but the star by it. But I've seen it with an L for the lobby.
1. So the floor immediately above that is 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then I'm a little bit hazy after that. And then you get to your room, and this is where those pan-Atlantic differences really take shape. Or should I say size, because there's one key rule. On the whole, British hotel rooms tend to be smaller than their American counterparts.
I noticed that when I was in Germany. We stayed at the Meridian in Frankfurt, and it looked like 2 miniature hallways side by side. One hallway had a bathroom, a couch, TV, and the other hallway had the bedroom. And even though they were wider than a hallway, it wasn't much wider than a hallway. It wasn't a very big room, to be honest with you, or 2 very small rooms.
Parts. And the reason for this, as we all know, is that America marginally out-freedoms Britain. But it's also because Britain is about a 40th the size of the United States.
So they're basing it on the country size is how big your hotel room is?
And so we just sort of cram things in. In fact, awkwardly, a tiny British hotel room was where I first met my in-laws. And they were staying in a room about the size of this studio, which surprisingly, given that I am often dubbed America's finest British import, is not that big. And at the best of time, I don't like being in close proximity to humans. So being squashed in a room with my future in-laws was the second most horrifying experience of my life. And I know what you
Yeah, I can understand that.
Thinking, ooh, Lawrence, what was the first? Being squashed in the elevator with them on the way up. But the next time we met in an American hotel, we sure did have a chuckle. At least I think we did. I couldn't hear them because they were on the other side of the room. You see, American hotel rooms, like cars or portion sizes or America itself, are just bigger. I mean, they'd have to be, right? Especially given what we've discovered on this.
Well, what you're telling me is that the English hotels are pretty much the same as the German hotels, is that they're small and cramped, whereas the American hotels, the ones that I've stayed in, are all very spacious. And even the motels that I've stayed in, the cheap motels, have been pretty spacious as well, for that matter.
Channel about the differences in bed sizes. And of course, a bed is not the only place in a hotel room where you lie down. In addition to the bed, the sofa, and in desperate times the closet, which should prompt nobody to ask me about the coat hanger incident of 1998, there is also the bathtub. And I know what you're thinking. Yes, Lawrence, the British bathtub has separate taps for hot and cold. Well, first,
No, I was in the bathtub in Germany. Well,
that's not always true. And secondly, that's not where I was going with this. I was actually going to mention the floor height. Because while in America the bathroom floor and the bottom of the bathtub are more or less level with each other, this is often not the case in Britain. To go from the floor to the bathtub, you often have to kind of step up because the bottom of the bathtub is higher up than the floor. There's one thing to remember this getting in, but getting out when your feet are wet and soapy, it could lead to an unintentionally hilarious TikTok video. In fact, I do have footage, but I can't show it on here because I'd get hundreds of complaints and an equal number of marriage proposals. So just take my word for it.
Yeah, I understand what he's talking about there, even though I can't show any visual proof myself. But that is somewhat strange because I was just in a shower at the Hampton Inn this morning, and everything was just like it would normally would be. But if it's just a step too high, that would be bad.
Electric plugs are, of course, found in many places and through
But
much
they
of our
but they have European plugs and so forth.
daily lives. But never more do I need them than when I'm in a hotel. So because of this, it is worth remembering some of the key differences between British and American plug sockets. But don't take my word for it. Instead, listen to me from last year. It was once said by me in Just a Second From Now that you can tell a lot about a country by the size of its plugs. And given its unparalleled record of boasting larger stuff than everyone else, America might fancy its chances of winning the my plug's bigger than your plug debate. But
I didn't know we had such a debate. I thought a plug was a plug, but I do know that when you go over to Europe, you have to bring a converter with you if you plan to plug anything into the wall, or else you're not going to be able to use it.
the truth is, and you might find this shocking, British plugs are larger. You can't talk about AC plugs without
Because those don't look like the European plugs. Those are huge.
talking about prongs. Prongs are the protruding sticks of metal that keep the plugger joined to the wall like a docked plane.
Although I'm not at liberty to do this, I give Britain the biggest plugs. They can have bigger plugs than us. I'll let them have that. That's perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned.
And the only reason I made an aviation simile there was to draw your attention to the miniature control tower I made from British and American adapters while I was bored. Anyway, there are several key differences in this department. On British plugs, the prongs are ever so slightly longer and crucially thicker. This makes them sturdier and impossible to bend. How do I know that? Because I was 14 once. But whereas British plugs, that is, Type G plugs, are decidedly triple-pronged, that's not always the case in America. Sure, Type B plugs, the ones whose sockets
Yeah, sometimes you don't have that third plug.
look like some
Or third part of the plug.
prized ghosts, definitely do have three prongs. But Type A plugs, which are easily the more outgoing and competitive of the two, are bipronged. Due to the manner in which each country feeds the wires into the plug, there's also a difference in how they hang from the wall socket. In Britain, the wire hangs vertically from the plug, thus making it harder to yank from the wall by pulling the cable. And the horizontal connection of American plugs means that you can do this in theory, but it's not recommended. One of the biggest concerns for Americans visiting Britain, aside from being forced to eat mushy peas, is the Great British American voltage divide. In Britain, residential voltage is categorized as 230 volts, while it's generally 120 in the US. Moreover, British mains electricity operates on a 50 Hz frequency and America on 60. What does all of this mean? Well, let's just say that you want to use your American laptop in Britain, but it doesn't run on 230 volts, is not dual voltage, or is incompatible with 50 Hz. In that instance, you'll need to run to Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Ah, nice Star Wars reference.
A power converter will convert the voltage from 230 to the voltage of your laptop in the event that your power...
In other words, you're going to be spending a lot of money on converters and adapters and so forth if you plan to use your laptop Great Britain.
Converter doesn't come with a Type G plug adapter, be sure to also pick up one of these. This plug adapter is magic. It allows you to turn your Type A or B American plug into a Type G British plug. For Brits visiting America, the same applies, but in reverse. A step-down power converter or transformer might also be needed to safely use devices in the US. Both are widely available for Americans and Brits on Amazon. I'd say the most obvious difference between British and American hotels is the temperature. When I first stayed in an American hotel, I couldn't believe how cold.
It really depends on the person who's there. My cousin's girlfriend likes it down as low as 62 degrees in a hotel room, and yes, that is true. But yeah, it is.
It was, and not in a Morgan Freeman type way. I mean, this was a DoubleTree. I just mean it was air conditioned. But in Britain, you don't usually have that problem and or luxury, because a significant amount of British hotel rooms are either not air conditioned or not air conditioned well. This is a particular problem when you're squished in one with your future in-laws. As with many areas of life, hotels are their own subgenre of British versus American word differences. Take, for instance, the name that we assign to that helpful hotel staff member who helps you with your luggage when you're checking in or out.
Assuming you have one that helps you with your luggage, the bellboy or the busboy.
In Britain and much of the rest of the world, this person is known as a hotel porter. This is the word we use for what Americans might
I've never used that word, hotel porter.
call a bellboy or a bellhop. Also, whether it's situated on the ground or the first floor, Brits and Americans also can't agree what you call that area of the hotel that you enter upon
The lobby.
entering. In Britain, we usually opt for the word foyer.
Yeah, I'm not going to call it the foyer. It's the lobby.
Please note that Americans, just like patrons on my most recent secret stream, are divided on whether this should be pronounced foyer or foyer. Either way, Americans will often call this area the lobby. More often than not, Brits will call an elevator a lift. Americans will call a lift an elevator, while Americans have about 100 words for a sofa bed. Chief among these are hide-a-bed, bed couch, sleeper sofa, or pull-out sofa. And
I've used all four of those.
finally, valet parking. This is something I've encountered far more in the United States than I have in Britain. This is a parking service offered at hotels in which you pay a valet to park your car for you. But the use of valet might be confusing to some Brits, who might think of a valet, often pronounced valet, as a male servant, a fine example of which is the character of Jeeves from P.G. Woodhouse's Jeeves and Wooster novels that I somehow keep mentioning in my videos just by coincidence. That's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below some of the hotel differences that you've encountered. I'm Lawrence Brown. You can follow me on Twitter at LostInThePondUS, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. And thank you to my patrons for literally making this video happen. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so today at patreon.com/LostInThePond.
Yeah, to support his channel and Lost in the Pond. Now, I thought this was going to be a little bit different, like maybe they had some things in a British hotel that they didn't have in an American hotel, or some they had in an American hotel and they didn't have in a British hotel. But yeah, I guess some of it was with the plugs, the way the bathtub is, and what we call certain things. I've never called it a lift. I've never called it the foyer or the foyer. I've always called it the lobby, and so forth, and the elevator. But no, this was good. This was interesting. This was a little bit different. Something to know if you ever travel over to England or Scotland or someplace like that. I'm assuming they have it all the same thing over there. But yeah, support Lawrence, Lost in the Pond, and support me. Please hit like and subscribe. This was fun. Thanks for watching.